as well as works at or works a lot with Singularity University. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Anna. Thanks for the kind introduction, and thanks to David and the team from F50 for the invitation and the hard work behind the scenes to get such an amazing array of speakers together. So I'm going to go to a screen share straight away and share a presentation with you. Hopefully, tech withstanding, it's all going to work okay. Here we go. So hopefully you can share. I can see my screen, hopefully. Okay, so the talk I'm going to give is around this whole topic of virtual. They call me the virtual surgeon, and I've been trying to figure out how we can democratize both healthcare education on a global level by connecting people. So that's kind of the grand message from this. So let's go forward and start thinking about this. Let's go back. In the last 3 months, what we've seen is a complete springboard acceleration of technology in healthcare. 3 months ago, we weren't breaking bad news for cancer diagnosis using a telephone or indeed telemedicine platform. It would be unheard of. We're now pushing the boundary where now telemedicine has largely overtaken face-to-face consultations, virtual. So we're seeing about an increase of 5,000% of teleconsults. So if we go back a few hundred years, this is the kind of way we depict that consultation taking place. It's the kind of the closeness, it's the hand touching, it's the empathy, it's the eye contact, all the things that we all assume to be the right way of providing healthcare. And it's true, for certain patients it's absolutely necessary, but we've seen now it probably is not for the majority. So this kind of healthcare is too expensive and we need to move on. Let's go to 1924, fast forward a few hundred years, in which this great picture was depicted by the futurists of 1924, looking at radio waves called the radio doctor. What they described were the early aspirations of telemedicine. So you can see how the world was moving on even 80 years ago. And telemedicine has expanded to virtual. And if you think about Ping An, one of the biggest telemedicine platforms around the world, this was before COVID-19. They had 300 million active users on their platform with over almost 6 million daily consultations, probably gone up by now over the course of the last 3 months, as we've seen an increase. Of course, became more virtual also, because now doing there's little kind of portable healthcare checkup kind of centers we can just walk into, get a remote consult, be virtual, then access the prescription next door through electronic health records, which gives you automatically the medicine. So already we think about its future and how we connect. And the COVID, all it's done is kind of catapulted into the future much earlier. My own work is around the whole concept of holograms, avatars, and this kind of extended reality. Very quickly, for those who don't know, extended reality is a mixture of certain things. On the one hand, you've got augmented reality, and it's like having a jet fighter pilot with a lens in front of him with overlay information, and that's been great, and that's kind of AR. On the other spectrum, you've got virtual reality, where you've inserted into a virtual world and you can actually do certain things, etc. We've seen great applications now in healthcare education. In the middle of it is something called mixed reality, where it's kind of a mixture of the two, combining them both virtual and the augmented reality in one. And the whole lot is called extended reality as the terminology. If we go back a few years of my experiences, I'll share some of my experiences. Google Glass came out in 2012 with much fanfare. It disappointed all of us because it was too early. It was such a clever device, but it was way ahead of its time. Society wasn't ready for it. We got the Google Glass back in 2014, and I streamed the world's first global operation using Google Glass, where I streamed live surgery around the world, and it was watched by 14,000 people in 118 countries, showing that we can connect people using smart technology with only a 2G, 3G connection onto their smartphone, democratizing healthcare. People on their smartphone could actually text a message during the operation, and I would answer it as a text within the corner of the Google Glass, showing an application for smart technology. I even talked this gentleman here, John Scully, the CEO of Apple, the ex-CEO of Apple, has to do a live operation remotely using mobile tech and also using augmented reality platform. Well, now we're seeing, of course, this augmented reality platform being now being used more routinely almost. We've seen applications in the operating theatre. We can actually put images in from CT MRIs, drawing the electronic health record images. So you can actually plan the operation, both preoperatively and peroperatively. And these are kind of things now coming much more into mainstream because of this acceleration of technology. My friends back in Sugimoto is seeing from Hololens from Japan, and I'm using these images in real time during the operation. So you can plan it now in real time, put the images in. This is liver surgery. It's a bit rudimentary. It's not perfect. Imagine the future, we can actually navigate through an operation using this kind of mixed reality, pointing out structures that might be dangerous and showing real time how you're performing. And maybe we could get objective measurement of a surgical ability. So this is kind of where the future is. Now you may think, gosh, that's so far in the future. You'd be wrong. A year ago, the American FDA, and I worked with the FDA on innovation about 3 years ago, trying to bring them forward to accelerate some of these ideas. And a year ago, the FDA approved 2 of these platforms to be used in surgery. So already it's HIPAA compliant. It's managed all the regulations, and now we can start using them and thinking about how we manage our patients differently in the operating theatre. We're also going to some virtual training. This is coming in, and there's been a cry out in the last 3 months of trainees who are missing valuable operative experience saying, can we go virtual? This is touch surgery. We've done amazingly well with a touch surgery platform on iPad and smartphone. Now gone to the virtual world, we can start planning and treating and performing operations. My friend Justin Barrard from the US, from Osso VR, has now pushed that to orthopedics, showcasing that actually you can train people in this fashion. Way before you get to the OR, you can acquire the skills that's required. And in fact, it's shown in some studies that virtual reality allows you to retain 80% of more information than a conventional 2D interaction. So not only is it visually stunning, it's actually capable of you retaining more information. So this is the future of training. My own view around virtual reality is this. This was a picture we took back in 2016 when I performed the world's first VR operation. In those days, it's fairly new. We got a bunch of GoPro cameras. We got a 3D printed rig. We figured out how we could stitch them all together, and we went live streamed way before this was really possible with a simple and cheap cameras, which are now obviously very possible. So on that day, we live streamed an operation around the world.
This 360 camera rig allows immersion. People around the world using a low-cost technology, a simple VR headset, can actually immerse themselves in operating theatre around the world.
I remember Daniel Kraft speaking, I think yesterday. Actually, he was in my operating theatre on that day, which is the world's first 360 video. And we have great pictures of him us together when we push this boundary, push the kind of the boundary of education forward. We then created, I have a number of companies. One is Medical Realities, which is an AR VR company, which created the world's first training platform in immersive learning. And we have, although 3 or 4 years ago we were too ahead of the curve, now we're seeing the pandemic, people crying out for virtual learning, saying how do we train people better? That's all healthcare professionals, it could be medical students, it could be postgrads, it could be surgeons, doctors, whoever. This is our platform we created, which I think allows a better immersive experience, etc. You can actually go into the modules, you go to anatomy, for example, and you can go to the operation. Some medical schools already have replaced traditional anatomy to go into immersive learning rather than having whatever dissection. This is kind of thing created. I think the environment allows you to be more immersive, makes you more lifelike, more real-like, and it makes sure you have the same pressures to find a stressful position in the hospital environment. But of course, we moved on. We've created OSCE stations and training, and going forward, virtual learning and virtual exams could be done quite effortlessly, both in AR and VR, which will allow the workforce to be managed better. Teachers and educators could be actually remote rather than being face-to-face. My real challenge is, of course, this. I did a lot of work globally. Over the last 3 or 4 years, I've been to about 35 countries working with governments, institutions, colleges, as part of my role at the College of Surgeons, but also the work I do philanthropically. The last 5 years, I've been running programs in conflict zones in Gaza, trying to figure out how we overcome some of the burdens of the geopolitical barriers to train people and bring skills necessary. So I've always thought about how do I transport myself physically? Because, as we've seen, travel is inefficient, it's expensive, and actually we can probably do better. 2 years ago, we thought we'd experiment whether we could connect 3 surgeons together, one from New York, one in Mumbai, in Tata Memorial, and me in London. How can we have like an MDT, a multidisciplinary team meeting together at the same point? So we did this with mixed reality, the HoloLens, and this is what we did.
Hi everybody. Hi Shafi.
So the HoloLens itself really allows us to reshape the way we connect people, we communicate with people, and also to be used in teaching and training. Initially, when you put the HoloLens on, it feels a bit strange, but actually within a few minutes, it becomes quite normal. You feel as though you're just discussing cases with people in the same room, for example, like we do in normal hospital practice.
We can come in and actually look at this content in full 3D. And obviously when you're working in this case, the medical field, having a full 3D understanding of a situation, for example, is really much more powerful in solidifying how you want to navigate it in your mind.
So that was their first attempt, saying how do we connect people using avatars, blue polygonal kind of images. And this is my colleague, James Kinross, another surgeon in the pandemic working with HoloLens at St Mary's Hospital, actually figured out how you could do ward rounds and training, taking that vision that much further forward.
John's x-ray, please, is that all right?
This is a ward round with a difference. Those hand gestures are controlling a mixed reality headset. The doctor can bring up x-rays and scans.
Thank you very much.
And the rest of the medical team can stay in a non-COVID area, sharing a live feed of everything he sees.
So this allows you to teach people, train people, see patients, avoid the kind of the contact that we're supposed to be avoiding with coronavirus and keep distancing alive. But the other issues around, that's about avatars, we work for mixed reality. What about actually recreating a digital human? So this is what we did a while ago, this was about 3 years ago, where we actually created my own image, 360, using photogrammetry, a process with about 105 cameras, creating a 3D model, which was more accurate, then adding some voice-enabled tech and some AI back end to enable that new digital human to converse and to become potentially an educator or even a doctor. So we decided to move that forward. And a couple of months ago, we used that same model of avatars. This is a company called Athea, who I've worked with from the US for a while. And we created this model around how would we connect during this pandemic, describing COVID-19.
Hey, Dr. Ahmed, good to see you again.
Hey Harrison, so good to see you. Where are you?
I'm in New York. How about you?
I'm in London, so good to see you. I think we've got Ian here as well, haven't we? Hi Ian.
Hey guys, I'm in downtown Atlanta right now. Thanks for joining me. I forgot my magic leap, but I've got my phone handy, so joining you through here.
Thanks for joining us. Should we have a look at some images to help us in this regard? Let's I'm just going to put up an image of the virus itself, just to show you what it looks like. Is essentially countries across here. These are China, Iran, Italy, and South Korea. As well as showing you the infections and confirmed cases are on this side here. Okay, sadly, this is obviously the most worrying part of it, and these are the deaths at Harrison. Sadly, there is a higher incidence of death rate compared to normal flu with the coronavirus. And we're seeing, again, how the deaths in China are being managed and have come to a kind of plateau.
Well, hey, thanks, guys.
So guys, thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for joining us from various parts of the world, from Atlanta, from New York. And this is the kind of future of teleconsultation, seeing patients, particularly with coronavirus.
So we did that. Then I thought, okay, well, that's the avatars. What about real persons? Can we go to that holoportation we've been describing for a while, using this mixed reality headset? So the company called WME, we worked a couple of years ago using 5G technology, connecting people at pace in terms of fast bandwidth and low latency, so we can transport ourselves using real-time technology.
Shafi, have a look at this.
Yeah, let me have a look over your shoulder.
Oh yeah, I see what's going on there. I think I can give some advice, Carl.
So that's a bit grainy, and it's going to get better and better. We're getting much better images now as technology is being advanced. And soon, I reckon we'll be able to holoport someone quite easily. You have a virtual conference with people that look like you, that might speak like you. What about if we really push the boundary of AI and empathy and create new humans, for example, that could replace us and become very much virtual? So if you imagine we recreate ourselves, our images, using a bunch of cameras and everything else, and then adding, as I said before, the interfaces that are now being developed with AI voice tech-enabled systems for most of healthcare. We could democratize healthcare and education. We've seen that the impact could be quite pronounced. And as I said before, the pandemic has accelerated our ways of thinking around this area. So what about if we did meet that digital human or the virtual human?
Hi, I'm Roman, a digital human brought to life by soul machines. With me, you can experience AI like never before because I learn and react emotionally like humans do.
So essentially, it's a kind of, we find ourselves in an amazing place. This is a great time to be alive, despite obviously the pandemic, because we're living in a really future society where suddenly technology has been more available. It's enabling, it'll help us, support us. We've gone more virtual. The patients are demanding different kind of healthcare. It's for us now redesign and reimagine the healthcare system to make healthcare more accessible, more affordable, and more equitable. And that's kind of the end of my talk. And I think that's about 20 minutes.
Okay, I don't see my video. Thank you so much for this amazing talk. I'm so impressed by the work that Thank you so much for this amazing talk, Dr. Ahmed. I'm just blown away by the technology that you're employing around the world. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but one thing I'd like to know is, just from my own knowledge, is it difficult when you're employing these technologies to really try to get other members of your community to employ it, or is there a lot of excitement around it?
So over the last 3 years, I'd say it was more difficult. There's more regulations, and society hadn't adapted or changed their mindset. Yeah. Now we're seeing it's like an open door. You can actually push the boundary, less regulations. People want virtual kind of working. As I mentioned during my talk, we've gone to virtual consults already. Yeah. We're breaking bad news with telephone or telemedicine. So the patients are ready, etc. So the other day, for example, I use a beam system, the telepresence system, to walk around like an iPod connected by an iPad on wheels, connected to your smartphone. 3 years ago, I was doing that routinely, and there was a bit of a hesitancy, anxiety amongst the hospital. Did that again in the last 3 months. No one bat an eyelid. It was absolutely fine. It was perfect. Everyone knows we've got to move on. So I said before, we've catapulted, we're leapfrogging. We kind of, the expression I'd love to share is this compression of time. We've compressed 2 to 5 years into 3 months, where we thought we'd never be. And so my view now is an open door, let's accelerate, let's just jump through those barriers that are no longer there.
So COVID has really changed the landscape on an immediate basis.
Entirely, and we can't go back. I think this, they said the new normal. I think this is the normal now. We can't go back. We're pushing on. I think hospitals and healthcare workers around the world accepted that. So it's an easier way to start now. And the barriers we had before, I guess, are much less. And everyone, I think, is innovating at pace. But we've still got a lot of work to do, of course, to bring innovation and translate as fast as possible.
And do you see any obstacles in adoption or anything that what needs to happen to even further support this system that's emerging?
Well, I think, of course, it will get cheaper, more affordable, and that's just kind of a time thing. I think some of the technology and the headsets that we're using are a little bit expensive, for example, or they're a bit heavy. So that will change. We've seen in 5 years, the headsets changing from $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 now to a few £100s, for example, in terms of virtual reality. And I think what we need to do now is create the content and the use cases, and also to create the research around it, the validation. Because obviously with doctors and healthcare workers, we're guided by science. We want clinical papers and trials to show that it's efficacious, that what we're doing is better than what we were doing before, which will, of course, attract more people and it'll be easy to translate. Rather than showing that we can do this, it's doing it and showing that it's effective.
Okay. And just a question, I have a UN background, so I'm always interested in what the rest of the world is doing. So are there countries that are further ahead? What needs to happen in other countries for this to be fully adopted? And, is it equal between all countries or regions?
Great question. Look, one of my views and the work I do on global health is around how we democratize healthcare. And that for me means having high-tech but low-cost solutions. That's always going to be the way to fundamentally change the world. And we know the disparity in healthcare around the world, with GDP in most countries being too expensive in healthcare. What I see now at the moment, the technology that we're describing, which is supportive and augments our work, will make healthcare more affordable for many more people because they're more connected, which is the key inference. And as it gets more cheaper, I think the technology will make us more human, allow us to develop healthcare much more globally. But as you say rightly, yes, of course, there's a disparity. We're seeing this much more in the US, for example, which is driving technology. We're seeing parts of Europe and the UK, for example, driving this. We are seeing the first world countries moving forward. I shared a video today on LinkedIn. Actually, I took my VR headset to Gaza back in 2016 to train people remotely in a conflict zone. I went to Sierra Leone last year and we actually trained people in virtual reality just because they had a smartphone with an app and suddenly they could train people. So actually, we are getting there. I think these kind of things allow us to really push that boundary of training so that more people around the world can benefit, and there was a barrier there before that we couldn't overcome. So I think we are now seeing much more uniformity around the world. And in the next 5 years, we'll see much more of that course.
I see that Dr. Manesh has a question. Dr. Manesh.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Yeah, Shafi, excellent talk, excellent keynote as always, and that's why I invited you. You never disappoint, so I'm really pleased. A couple of questions. One is obviously, I think in terms of training, which is one of your areas of interest, were already there. The care bit might take a few further years, but definitely work in progress. One of the questions was related to, I guess, the barriers that traditional institutions pose to people like you in terms of moving things forward. And the second question is some form in terms of, I guess, security, cybersecurity and regulation of some of this work.
Yeah, that's a really good questions, Manish. So I've been lucky, I guess, in my hospital, as I've driven innovation in the last 5 years, I've been supported. But a lot of that is common sense, Manish. When driving innovation, when we're doing these big projects and really pushing the boundary of what's acceptable, we had the governance team, we had the audit team, the ethics team, all the people involved saying, what are the potential risks here? How do we overcome some of the hurdles and still innovate at pace? And we had sensible decisions being made, and that's the key. What I'm seeing now, of course, is that we are seeing much more adoption. The UK healthcare system is much more mature, is thinking about translating this kind of work, and there's less barriers. And recently we've seen less regulation. We understand that regulation is a problem, but regulation, the legal framework, remember, is like 5 years behind of where we are. So as long as you sense we understand, you mitigate the risk, you drive that change and make sure the patients are at the center of that journey and that you avoid any complications or any undue safety problems, then I think you're okay. So yes, I'm an inventor, early adopter, and there's a few of us, but I'm seeing that changing. The other thing we need to do very quickly is change the workforce. I've been pushing for digital enabled workforce for a while. I've changed my medical school curriculum to become digital, bringing innovation, entrepreneurship, and future tech into the undergrad curriculum. And I'm now producing a digital academy going forward for the trust so that we create a seamless position where the innovation becomes the heart of every organization. And that's for all of us, Minesh, to drive that change in our organizations with innovation at the very heart. Otherwise, we're left behind.
No, well done, well done. It was great to see you today. And thanks again for the lovely talk.
Thank you so much.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed. I don't know what else to say. There's more to follow. There is more perspective here on the future of healthcare. In our next panel, we have